Hey, this is CinelikeMe with episode 2, and I'm going to be talking about monetary motivation and why it's redundant and stupid.
I found it difficult to understand why millions were out of work, homeless, starving, while all the factories were sitting there. The resources were unchanged. It was then that I realized that the rules of the economic game were inherently invalid. Shortly after came World War II, where various nations took turns systematically destroying each other. I later calculated that all the destruction and wasted resources spent on that war could have easily provided for every human need on the planet.
Say you're in India, you live there, you grow rice. You need to sell this rice to survive. Americans come along, they can give you $15 a kg or whatever rice goes for, and the people in your village can only give you $3 a kg because they don't have enough money. So you ship all your rice off to America and you get more money for that. But America doesn't need all that rice. The people in India, they're starving, but they can't afford it. Then the Americans have all this rice, some of it goes off, some of it goes off when it's shipping there. It's a ridiculous waste, and it's only because of monetary motivation. The rice does not need to leave the country. There's enough food in America to feed the Americans. I don't know, I'm using America as an example, like anywhere. I go to the supermarket, I see there's plums from Zimbabwe. I'm sure the people in Zimbabwe need these plums more than I do. I'm gonna go over here and buy the ones that are actually from New Zealand.
For example, the gross domestic product of a country is a measure of the value of goods and services sold. This measure is claimed to correlate to the standard of living of a country's people. In the United States, healthcare accounted for over 17% of GDP in 2009, amounting to over $2.5 trillion spent, hence creating a positive effect on this economic measure. And based on this logic, it would be even better for the U.S. economy if healthcare services increased more so, perhaps to $3 trillion or $5 trillion, since that would create more growth, more jobs, and hence boasted by economists as a rise in their country's standard of living. But wait a minute, what do healthcare services actually represent? Well, sick and dying people. That's right, the more unhealthy people there are in America, the better the economy. Now, that is not an exaggeration or a cynical perspective. In fact, if we step back far enough, you will realize that the GDP not only doesn't reflect real public or social health on any tangible level, it is, in fact, mostly a measure of industrial inefficiency and social degradation.
All the company worried about was production. Never mind about the men getting sick, falling down the wayside, getting crook, and then dying at such a young age, you know.
In Ohio, an old man failed to pay his electric bill. You may be familiar with the case. And the electric company turned off the electricity and he died. The reason they turned it off was because it wouldn't have been profitable for them to keep it on because he didn't pay his bill. Do you believe that was right?
At the end of the day, the last thing the medical establishment really wants is the curing of diseases such as cancer, which would eliminate countless jobs and trillions in revenue. And since we're on the subject, crime and terrorism in this system are good. Well, at least economically, for it is employing police, generating high-value commodities for security, not to mention the value of prisons that are privately owned for profit.
Monetary motivation, it's terrible. It totally cuts off people's connection with resources and people's connection with the way that resources are created and resources are attained.
A fundamental governing principle of market economics, one that you will not find in any textbook, by the way, is the following. Nothing produced can be allowed to maintain a lifespan longer than what can be endured in order to continue cyclical consumption. In other words, it is critical that stuff break down, fail, and expire within a certain amount of time. This is termed planned obsolescence. Planned obsolescence is the backbone of the underlying market strategy of every goods-producing corporation in existence. In other words, product sustainability is actually inverse to economic growth and hence there is a direct, reinforced incentive to make sure lifespans are short of any given good produced.
Money is just incredibly old-fashioned. You know, it made sense back in the day when you had a guy with a chicken farm, he wanted a chair, a guy with some chairs, he wanted a cart for his horse, a guy with a horse cart, he wanted some vegetables. You know, everyone had their own things, and it just made sense to have a unit that you could exchange between each other that had a fixed value and could therefore cut out all this trading between each other. So it made sense back in the day. But nowadays, you can just press a button and a chair is made. You just press a button, there's a cart for your horse. You can, if you want to, just press a button. A house is built, a car is made. There is no more need for all this redundant, repetitive, physical, manual labour. And so money has become redundant in and of itself. And I think lots of people are failing to recognise this. You know? So what, the chicken farm might still need some people working on it, but there are all these people, the chair makers and the car makers, that don't have jobs. They could probably help out part-time at the chicken farm. You don't need full-time work. Like, that's really unnecessary. Like, if someone, I'm going to say the government because they're leaders, but whoever, like, actually sat down and worked out what we could do with technology at the moment. Like I said, so many jobs would be cut, but that doesn't need to be a bad thing, because then everyone can help out on the jobs that still are there. Creative jobs. Most people love being creative, I know I do. Yeah, food. Food's still a industry that needs people working in it. But there's really, like, in that situation, resources would be abundant. And money is just, it's old, man, it's old school. Like, world gotta keep up with the times, you know?